I'm not really sure if there's anything to talk about that's helpful. I tend to think a lot, so it can be just blah 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 blah, which has been useful up to a point to let things out and make sense of things in a way, but then in some ways it just becomes just a loop, sort of going over the same thing again and again. Maybe it's never exactly the same thing because there's sometimes it does seem to be very similar, but things tend to piece together. But I don't always know what is a clear thought, what is a useful thought, and what is a thought that's just I don't know if it's the right way to put it, being generated by a feeling. I mean, thoughts aren't generated by a feeling. I mean, feelings feed into them in the sense that whatever's happening with attention. I mean, for example, thoughts tend to change and there tends to be more prolific is the right word, for lack of a better word, more prolific, just a large amount of thinking that tends to happen when I'm eating, and I try to pull my mind back to the food, but it just, there's no point. For a while I tried to fight against it and try to think my way out of thinking. I mean, like, I'm eating, why am I doing this? And then that's more thinking, and then thinking, oh, I could do this, like I made a sandwich for lunch, and then I'm thinking about, oh, I needed to buy paper towels. If I bought paper towels, then I could have dabbed the sauerkraut, so the sauerkraut wouldn't have been wet, so it made the sandwich soggy. And then I think, hang on, this is just food. This doesn't even matter. Like, this is just like another attachment. This is another just nonsense, you know. I mean, not that there's anything bad about preparing food nicely, and there's anything wrong with using a paper towel to dampen something or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it's to be sort of mentally proliferating over it while eating just doesn't seem like a good thing. But then, I mean, then again, it just happens. Trying to like get away from that is not really the way to go either. That's just more battling rather than self-acceptance. Not even that there is a self as such, but just rather than letting things be, letting the mind do. The mind just does what it does, and key is just to watch it, and then it gradually shifts over time. It's just funny that the thing is that even it's a habit. So I've noticed in the past that even when I try to make things as orderly as possible, let's say the sandwich was perfect. Let's say there wasn't, the sauerkraut had been dried with paper towels, so it didn't make the sandwich at all wet or whatever, right? I've done that. It's a habit, the thinking while eating, because the energy from the food feeds the brain, feeds the hormones, and then thinking tends to happen just more, and then the mind reacts to the thinking and then feeds into that, and it's just all feeding into each other. So it's just a habit. So even if the sandwich was perfect, as I was saying already, as even if it was perfect, and that wouldn't have come up anymore. That wouldn't have been the thought that would have been coming up. Oh, the sandwich is wet, because the sandwich is like perfect. Let's say it's like exactly how there's like nothing wrong with the sandwich. But then the habit, the thinking will still be happening. It just won't be thinking about this. The thinking will not be, oh wow, this sandwich is perfect. Oh, what did I do to make it this great? Oh, I better make sure I've got enough of the things to do it next time. Oh, I wonder if I could do a variation. Oh, I wonder how I could make it better, even if it's perfect, because it's a habit of. This is the thing. It's a habit of just wanting more. It's. I mean, you see it with like YouTube. There are, don't get me wrong, like amazing YouTube channels out there for cooking, and I've sometimes thought about doing that myself. But if you look at how, you look at the amount of variations of burgers, that recipes someone could put on, like a million different recipes. Like it's never ending with the recipes you can do, because we'll always be craving a new taste, trying something new. There'll always be, and it's the same with anything. It's the same with music. It's the same with pornography. It's the same with films. It has to be shifted to give the same, for the same hit, for the same power of whatever the hit is. Even CBD, which I found quite useful at times. Even CBD, you can, after a while, that strength doesn't have the same thing, so switch to a different, increase the strength. Or even medication, even one I'm on now for Oxetine, it doesn't seem to work in the same way that it used to. It's still helpful, but there's certainly more anxiety. That could be just because of everything that's happened, but it's also that it's one of the reasons why it's essentially a drug, and the reason why a drug feels good is that you haven't experienced it before, so it's a new feeling, and then to then get the same hit, you have to do more of it. It is like a monster that can never be fed, like a rubber band that never goes back. Yuta Dharma was saying that in a video. It doesn't retreat. The band, you could say, the threshold just keeps going up and up. It's like when people get rich as well. It's like when someone makes $1 million, and then the million is like a huge thing. Like they've got their first meal or whatever. It's like, wow, it's the feeling. And then make another $1 million, they don't get the same feeling. To then get that same feeling, they have to make 100 million or whatever, and then eventually, even when they keep making millions, they're not getting that same feeling anymore, and then they want billions. And that's essentially just how greed works, and how many people, there aren't many billionaires, but the billionaires that are there, most of them, it's not giving them the same hit that it used to. So So they keep chasing more and more, while everyone else has less and less. But I mean, that's just how greed works. The individual can't see what's happening generally. Especially because they're around people that also have a lot, so now it doesn't feel anything. It doesn't feel like they don't feel necessarily that wealthy anymore because they're around people who are as wealthy or wealthier. So, you know, but the interesting thing is it doesn't really bring any happiness. I mean, it brings a kind of happiness, but not real happiness, because it's not peace. It's just a habit of wanting more and more, and it's not sustainable. There's a much greater peace and happiness to be found by just letting go of all those wants and attachments. And there's probably a better way of wording all of this. It's just these things aren't that hard to put into. These things aren't that hard. These things can be quite hard to put into words. For a while, I mean, when I was doing meditation a couple of years ago, and I was doing a fair bit after I recovered, when I was starting to recover after the suicide attempt, and I did quite a bit of meditation. I was also on medication as well, which as I started to meditate more and more, I tapered off the meds. But what was interesting about that time was that I did find some real happiness and peace, a lot of peace and happiness. But my mistake was that I really attached to it and really just wanted to get more and more of it. I wanted just to get high on it, you know. It was just about getting high on those feelings of the peace. It felt like, at one point, it felt like my whole body felt weightless. It felt like it wasn't there, and I don't know, it was something. For a while I wanted to share that with people, and I remember sending meditation booklets to family members. It's just necessarily a bad thing, but I'm not sure how interested they were or how interested they are now. It's just like, wow, I found this. But I kind of missed the boat, because I hadn't to attach to those feelings as my own or as valuable was my mistake, because the pleasant feelings in themselves that were achieved by meditation, and to an extent the meds, also helped. But a lot of it was meditation, because I was tapering off the meds anyway. And the meditation would still help. Meditation ultimately does more than the meds. The meds just stop things going to the extreme. They just stop extreme physical feelings, but the meditation actually purifies the actual mind and changes the habits. So the meditation had really refined the habits a lot. But my mistake, as I said, was attaching to those feelings and seeing those states that I'd got into as valuable, when they weren't valuable, simply for the reason that they were only temporary. They weren't sustainable. They weren't the goal. They were, you could say, they were like you could say like a cool lake upon the route, on the route. They were like a stopover, like a taster of the peace that can be found, a little taster of the peace that can be permanent eventually. But not through chasing after it. That's the whole problem. There was a lot less anger at that time, and hence why everything felt very light and easy. But there was a lot of greed, a lot of lust, and in the end, that can lead back to anger anyway, because there's only so long that you can get everything you want and stay in a pleasant state for, especially when you're just chasing after pleasant states, peaceful states. In the end, when you can't achieve it, especially if part of the way you're getting through that sense of physical relief is not just through meditation, but also through food addiction, through sex addiction, through spending money, through buying things, through all these sorts of things. And in the end, it will lead back to distress. Because, as I said, there's only so long you can get what you want for. So the other thing is, it's easy to meditate when, meditation is easy to sustain when the state is peaceful. Oh, my wife's calling me.